Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to Reddit Aliens. I'm John, and as always, thank you so much for being here. Good topic for you today. Let's do it. Women of Reddit, what's your creepy story about someone following you? Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. I was legitimately stalked my first semester of college. The guy was in the same English class. Second or third week, we talk a little after class and find out that we live in different dorms, but in the same complex. Now, the dorms were towers, 17 floors with 35 or so rooms per floor, huge building. One day, him and his roommate show up at my door, except I never told him which floor I lived on. So he had to go to each floor and try to find me. He then proceeds to come into my room while my roommate and I are doing work and lays on the floor. Finally, his friend tells him he's being weird and they should go. Then, he started just sitting outside my dorm room. I would come back from class and he would be there, just sitting and waiting. He would leave notes on the whiteboard that he just wanted me to read his essay for class. He just wanted to talk to me. Why wouldn't I give him a chance? He then started sending me creepy song lyrics over MySpace about how he was going to burn down the dorm to get me to have to leave my room. I printed those up and got my English teacher involved, a lovely grad student who luckily was a women's advocate. She got her supervisor involved. My teacher started walking with me to my next class, all the way on the other side of the very large campus. He followed us the whole way, even when we made detours to the bathroom or to get coffee. Finally, the teacher had us write an ode to our favorite study spot. Kind of weird, but whatever. He wrote about sitting outside my door, how he felt powerful when he knew I was trapped inside, and even put my room number and other identifiable stuff in it. That ended up getting turned over to the university, in addition to the song lyrics, and there was a whole hearing with myself, my roommate, and some others having to give statements. Unfortunately, they never told me what happened, but he wasn't at the school the next semester. The next year, his roommate happened to be in one of my classes. The very first day, he comes up to me and says that there's no hard feelings for what you did to my friend. Asshole. This one probably isn't as bad as other people's here, but here goes. Mandatory mobile disclaimer. In my freshman year of high school, I walk to my regular lunch table spot, and there's a kid we don't know sitting there. No biggie. I assume he's friends with somebody else at the table. He strikes up a conversation with me, saying I look familiar. He asks my grade, my middle school and elementary school. We went to the same middle school, but he was a senior, so we wouldn't have gone at the same time. He asks about elementary school, so I give him my school, and we went to different schools, and I talk about how crappy mine was, and he says, "Oh, can I give you a hug because you went to a crappy elementary school?" I'm caught off guard, so I give him a hug anyway. I ask around the table and no one knew him. He keeps showing up for a few days, but we ignore him and only speak to him when spoken to, leaving a seat between us, etc. But the really creepy part is at one point he came to my history class for yearbook interviews and wanted a boy and a girl. I was literally the only kid with my hand down, and he chose me and my male friend. He takes us out in the hall separately. My friend first. He says we need to do 2 interviews with different endings, one with a handshake and one with a hug. I do both, not knowing better. First thing I did when I came back to class was ask my friend if he did the hug. He said no. After chatting with my friends about it for a bit, I remember yearbook kids can access schedules. I only gave this kid my first name too. I told my history teacher about it, and he said he'll email the kid's yearbook teacher. Kid left me alone after that, but I still made a friend pretend to be my boyfriend when I saw him around. One time I was walking in my neighborhood. It was evening in the early fall, and living up north, the sun sets faster than you'd expect. A car pulled up next to me and said, "Hey, need a ride or something?" I said no and kept walking, but he rolled next to me trying to get my attention until the car pulled up behind him and he had to drive off. I thought I was in the clear, so I kept hurrying home, but he just pulled around the block and rolled next to me again, this time saying things like, "Come with me and I want to fuck you." I was 14 or so and didn't have a phone and couldn't see anyone else outside to go for help, so I kept walking until another car made him pull away again. Worried he'd come back, I dashed down a side road and hid between some cars for maybe 10 minutes, hoping he'd give up and I could make it home. I was the kind of kid that always carried a pocket knife, so I opened it, slipped it up my sleeve in case I tried to need it in a hurry. If I was smart, I would have picked a random house and gone there for help, but the closed doors seemed just as scary as the guy in the car. Eventually, I started heading home again and was half a block from my house when guess who pulled up? But he didn't have more than a couple of seconds before he had to move on for another car. I waited until he had rounded a corner before I ran the rest of the way home and got the door safely locked behind me. When I was 16, my parents took me on a cruise and let me wander around Nassau on my own. Yeah, bad decision on their part. A creepy guy from the cruise followed me around while I was going through Nassau. I noticed him decently quickly and took a few random turns to see if he was indeed following me. I happened to run into a few other teens from the cruise, and two of them, traveling with their family, let me hang out with their group until we went back to the ship. The older guy mentioned to me there was a creepy guy that seemed to be following me, and I let him know that I was aware and trying to lose him, obviously freaked out a bit, and he was nice enough to pretend to be dating me for the guy to back off. I will forever be grateful to him and his family. Sadly, we never did keep in touch. I'll never forget his name or what he did for a stranger that day. I might be alive because of his actions. Had to catch a bus downtown one night after work and walked home in the dark. A group of guys called down to me from their rooftop party, clearly drunk, and I ignored them. 5 minutes later, one of them came up next to me on a bicycle. He said to me in a sing-song voice, "Those don't look like running shoes to me. Aren't you afraid of getting hard?" I was wearing flat sandals. This was a time before cell phones. I was terrified but didn't know what to do. I kept walking straight ahead, keys in my hand, ready to defend myself, and did not acknowledge him. He eventually laughed and went back to his group. When he was safely behind me, I ran the rest of the way home and stopped. I don't drink, but I frequented the bar by my house pre-COVID just to meet my neighbors, so to speak. I knew almost everyone there. It's a small bar tucked in a shopping strip type thing behind a standalone restaurant. My friend, who brought their dogs to the bar, asks me to watch them while he runs into the bar to get a drink. While I'm watching his dog, a man I've never met before or seen at the bar asks me if the dogs are mine. I let him know they are not, and that they are my friend's dogs. That's it. All I said. He walked away, and I went about my business. 2 a.m. rolls around, and the bar is closing. I say my goodbyes and head to my car parked on the other side of the Mexican restaurant, out of sight of the bar. Dumb, I know, but there was no other parking. I'm sitting in my car, looking for the right song, when I feel someone watching me. It's the man who asked about the dogs, motioning for me to his car. I crack the window to hear what he wants because I'm not yet too scared, but I'm curious. He asks me what I'm about to do, where I'm going. Do I want to go home with him? Can he come home with me? To which I reply to all of his questions, no, absolutely not. Now I'm on edge. I figure I'll let him back out and leave the parking lot first so he can't follow me. He doesn't. It's a stalemate. We're sitting there for way too long. The parking lot is becoming more and more empty, and I don't want to be left here with him staring at me through the window. So I pull out in a direction that I pull out behind his car and grab his plate number in my head. I keep repeating it over and over in my head just in case. He pulls out behind me. We leave the parking lot and hit the first light. I tell myself not to panic. Anyone leaving this bar has to hit this light, and he could go any direction. He takes a left after me. Next light we come up on, I make it though, but he doesn't. However, my turn from my neighborhood is right after that light, and he'll see me turn in front there. So I keep driving, and luckily I live 2 more lights down from the police station for my district. I pull into the parking lot for a few minutes and turn back around and head to the gas station near my house to get gas for the morning. As I'm pulling into the gas station, he's pulling out. Me, right? Should have waited longer. I pull into a parking spot and watch my mirror as he flips around and comes back to the gas station and pulls into the spot next to me. I'm already in reverse, and I leave out the side entrance to the gas station and go down to the road I was just on. I'm waiting at the light to turn left, and I can see him at the entrance that meets the road I'm turning left on. He's just sitting there at a gas station exit waiting for me. He could have pulled out 1 trillion times. There were no cars. My lights turn green, and I make my left, and he pulls out in front of me and goes really slow. It clicked. He did this so I'd pass him, and it wouldn't be suspicious that he was following me, because I'm the one that passed him, right? Wrong. I said, "Let's go, dude," and passed him. I drive down the road using my turn signals each time I needed to. Drive nice and slow. Made sure not to lose him at any of the lights. I turn down a side street. He's behind me. I turn into the police station parking lot, look in my rearview mirror, and watch him gas it down a 25-mile residential neighborhood, because at that point, he knew I knew. As soon as I parked, I cried my eyes out. The entire time I was calm, collected, and aware, as I could be, but as soon as he was gone, I was a hysterical mess. A volunteer patrol officer, retired police officer that still wants to be busy, found me and took me inside, where I gave him the accurate license number and the make, model, and generation of his vehicle. They ran the plates and confirmed the plates met my description, so yay for my memory finally working for me. I was actually surprised about the whole thing was handled. I was surprised they would do a report, even though nothing illegal technically happened, I don't think. I'm surprised they didn't question if the hysterical woman crying uncontrollably was drunk or lying. They even had a patrol car follow me to my house and wait outside for me to check each one of my rooms for an intruder. When you put a whole story together and, a left turn here, a right turn there, a stop there, what goes through the mind of the person following you? Like, do they think this act of stupidity is going to make this person just randomly say, "Wow, he really followed me everywhere. I should love him forever"? I'm sorry that women have to go through this, and anybody has to go through this, because this behavior is diabolical. Ugh, get over it. I used to go running in a park that had a parking lot at each end when I lived in Lubbock, and some guy in a maroon Pontiac sedan used to drive back and forth to watch me. I have no idea how long he had been doing it, because I used to be so interested in goings-on of prairie dogs when I ran by them. When I finally started noticing the car, weeks later, he would speed off and then show up on the other end of the park when I made it back around. I decided to go later when more people were there, and he still showed up. So I pretended not to notice him one day and blew him off, and he slowly drove down the park street pacing me. It scared me so bad, but also pissed me off, so I hauled ass to my car and peeled out after him in my crappy car. Unfortunately, he had a faster car, but he actually fishtailed out down the main road as I sped up to him. He went through a red light to get away from me, so I went home and didn't go back to that park for a few weeks. When I went back, no more maroon Pontiac, just the cute prairie dogs. I worked at a department store. I was in customer service and cashed checks. There was this guy who would wait until I was available just to cash his check and talk. He would try and hold personal conversations in the line and wanted to know my work schedule and where I lived. If I covered a break on a register, he would find me and get in a long line just to buy a Pepsi and see me. If he saw me anywhere in the store, he would sneak up behind me and tickle my ear. I was very uncomfortable. I told my supervisors, and they would intervene whenever he came in. One day I was leaving the store late. I got off at 11 p.m. As I was walking out, he approached me from the side of the building in a shadowy area and tried to grab me. Luckily, I walked outside at the same time. The truck boys were on a smoke break. They grabbed him and told me to run and call the cops. I don't know what he could have or would have done to me had I been alone. When I was 16, working at a grocery store, we had a secret shopper who told me he was 18. We talked on Facebook until I realized another coworker told me he was 24. I confronted him, and he said the age of consent in our state was 16 anyway, so it was fine. I couldn't tell my dad because he would flip out. So for 2 weeks at work, I had to deal with him following me everywhere. I went, and he would text me nonstop. If I blocked him, he made another account. I went to management, and they immediately fired him, and now he's never allowed in the store again. Still grosses me out to this day. Went to a dive bar with my boyfriend and his friends. This creepy man, about 60, kept coming up to me and talking to me anytime my boyfriend left my side. I was drunk and stupidly left the bar alone to walk to the 24/7 garage that was 2 minutes away and a straight walk down the high street. It was dark. Everywhere was closed. And I made it all the way up to the high street when I heard my boyfriend shout my name from the bottom of the street. He wanted to know where I was going and came out to look for me. I turned around to find his voice, and this 60-year-old man was about 10 to 15 feet behind me. I had no idea he had followed me all the way up the street. I never heard or saw him. When he saw my boyfriend, he immediately turned around and walked back to the car quickly, never going back there again, as I learned he actually works or owns the bar. Hope it's not something he does to drunk girls regularly. I have so many of these, but this is the most recent. I had just finished getting groceries, and as I walked out of the shop, a rugged, dirty-looking man approached me and said something about how beautiful I was. Embarrassed and uncomfortable, I just smiled and kept walking. Then he followed me. He kept saying things like, "Oh, sweetheart, you're so gorgeous," and "Come on, beautiful, talk to me." I didn't engage him, just kept walking. It's about a 30-minute walk home from the shop. He followed me for about 15 minutes. Near the end, he started asking for money. I ignored him until I eventually told him I didn't have money. He kept asking for a little while after and then walked away. It was the middle of the day. I'm really glad he didn't follow me all the way home. I don't know what I would have done. I was a young girl, maybe 7. I was walking in our small town with my female cousin who was probably 10 years old. We were out alone. It was almost 40 years ago, and our parents weren't worried about us spending time on our own unsupervised back then. We ended up in a more industrial area, large warehouses, factory buildings. It was deserted because it was the weekend, I guess. We noticed after a while that a man was walking behind us and had been for a while. He was in his 20s or 30s. He was far enough behind us that one might think it's just a coincidence. We turned on a couple of different streets and he was still there. I started to become increasingly afraid. There were no cell phones then. There were no residences nearby. I didn't know what sex was, and I don't think I even knew about kidnapping, but I felt danger anyway. We knew we had to get away, so we turned down an alley that had chain link fencing. It was narrow, and I started to wonder if it was a mistake. The man followed, and I was suddenly terrified as I realized it was the man's intention to follow us all along. We made it to the end of the alley, squeezed through the fence, went down an embankment, and ran across the train tracks. I think the man gave up then. We didn't tell anybody and never really talked about it to each other. I still wonder about that man, what he would have done if he had caught us. Did he keep doing this to other girls? I have my own kids now. Don't let them hang out outside on their own. I do think it was good to grow up with the freedom to roam around unsupervised, but our own parents were pretty naive about stranger danger back then. I was studying abroad in Eastern Europe as a junior in college. One weekend, myself and two other girls in the program drove to the capital of Slovakia, Bratislava, to spend the day. We were strolling around the mostly touristy area of the city on a summer evening. It was peak dinner time in a walking district, so there were lots of people about, except on these little connecting side streets that would be mostly empty. While taking one such connecting street, we were excitedly grabbing away when all of a sudden I got that cliche but totally real feeling of hair standing up on the back of your neck. I suddenly realized there was a man walking behind us. He wasn't obviously suspicious, but he was only about 10 feet back, and I think my subconscious noticed he was maintaining that distance. Rather than trying to get around us, there was plenty of room, or us outpacing him. My fight or flight kicked in, but my gut said to be cool. I have no idea what one of my friends was saying, but I completely cut her off with a, "Hey guys, actually, let's go over here," and immediately turned a 180 back the way we had come. I didn't look at my friends or anything, so I don't know their reactions, but they went with it. As soon as we turned around, the man stopped. He was close enough the three of us had to split to get around him, and as we did, he just stood there. Then after we passed, he turned around on the spot and started walking behind us again. The street led into a very large open square with a coffee shop nearby. Thankfully, the shop had a little outdoor seating and an empty table, so I speed walked up and plopped myself down, facing out as my friends quickly took a seat too. To my astonishment, the man continued walking toward us, maintaining eye contact with me as he did so. It was at this point my friends noticed the man. My heart was pounding furiously, thinking there was going to be a confrontation, when at the last second he just passed by. The whole encounter was less than a minute, but I was shook, worried we had just dodged a taken storyline. A young waitress came out, and thankfully she spoke enough English for us to explain sort of what happened. She allowed us to sit for a few minutes without buying anything to recover and make sure we didn't notice more funny business around us. We were on guard the rest of the night, but nothing else happened, and we never saw that man again. Part of me wonders if it was just being a paranoid weirdo, but the feeling that something was wrong was so random and powerful. I can't blow it off as imagination. Unfortunately, we were broke and had to sleep in our car that night. Suffice it to say, we didn't sleep well.